There's nothing experimental about Dunki at all. He's playing a guy who is good at heart. There is nothing, even on the surface, there's nothing gray about him. He's very much a Shah Rukh Khan kind, a version of Shah Rukh that we've seen before. Very, very violent, very macho, very extremely a kind of a cinema where everything, the women characters are all subservient to the male characters. All of this in a universe which seems to appeal to so many people today will maybe bring back the Prabhas's fans, but I don't know whether it will be as much of a celebration of Prabhas as it has been, say, in Bahubali. I'm not sure.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Express. It's a big Friday, and we had Dunki releasing yesterday, which is the Shah Rukh Khan Rajkumar Hirani film, which had massive buzz around it. And then there is Salaar, which is the Prabhas Prithviraj starrer, which has managed to garner a lot of buzz around it too. And Shubra, I'm going to ask you a question which no critics should be asked. Which one did you prefer?
Off the top of my head, I have to say I did enjoy myself a little more in Salaar, completely unexpectedly, because I mean KGF was what it was, and this is actually just KGF multiplied by 10 times over. It's the same kind of story, it's the same kind of universe, it's the same kind of world. The color palettes are so similar. There are lots of black, lots of red. The red comes from limbs being broken and shattered and taken to pieces and lifted up, and headless swords cleaving through heads. It's a whole full bloodbath. It's almost like the director Prashant Neel decided when he went in, so there will be blood, and there is blood. So it's also a story of revenge. It's also a story of friendship. There are some epic mythical moments, and it is a world that Prashant Neel actually creates with some kind of conviction. Plus, there is, of course, Prithviraj and Prabhas. So when they are on screen, you do get the kind of frisson that you get when two men are basically, sort of facing off as well as talking to each other. And there is a little bit of that as well. Other than that, it's just a lot of bloodletting. So having said what I did about enjoying myself a little more than I did in Dunki, I also fell out of the movie quite fast. I mean, I kept going back in. That was the only advantage with this one, because every time there is a lot of bloodletting, then there are people who have a couple of speaking lines. So therefore you pay attention, and then it goes back to this. So it's back and forth between the two. But like I said, if you hold a gun to my head, maybe not even a gun to my head, I would say yes, Salaar, and not Dunki.
Which brings us to Dunki, and you gave it not a very good review. You called it a crashing bore, and the reviews even the audience reaction we had. People, we have videos of audience reaction. You can check them out. We'll share the link below. Has been kind of mixed. People are nobody seems to be going really gaga over it. So yeah, what went wrong with Dunki, do you think?
I think there's very little that is right with it. It's neither a Rajkumar Hirani film. The kind of movies that he does where in which everything is a little bit like highlit. The relationship between the father and the son in Munna Bhai, or between Circuit and between Munna himself, or between, the kind of you get that buzz when you see PK arriving on planet Earth for the first time, or you see a kind of a college which is constructed, but you also know that parents who really are responsible for their wards going into directions where those students have absolutely no interest in the subject that they are doing, you know that there is something to it that you can relate. uh, so Rajkumar Hirani's movies are all extremely relatable. He's always done these slice of life, middle of the road movies, which he adds a little bit of Hirani's touch to it, which I think also is part of the Abhijat Joshi's writing in the movies before it, where you have something which is not quite probable or not quite possible, and they make you believe. And in Dunki, none of this is really, you can't see anything of Rajkumar Hirani's magic in this. Nor can you see Shah Rukh Khan, who, when he does his full tilt, starry swag, the kind of movies, both the movies that he's done before this in this year, which have really been the biggest blockbusters of the year, both Pathan and Jawan, where he's playing Shah Rukh, but he's also playing this guy who is full tilt at being the patriot, being the Indian, being the guy that we want to believe in. Here he's playing somebody that I didn't even buy his Hardy even for a second. I don't know. It's possibly got to do with the fact that he's written so flat. Like every other character in the film, there is no lift to any of them. You don't believe in anything that they do. The premise itself is so banal, and in fact it's not even something that sort of makes sense, because what are you advocating for? You are saying that there should be that people who don't know English are not worth it. Of course that's not true, and you do get this entire mind your language kind of segment which is goes on, and which we've seen a billion times before. There's nothing original about that. And then in this whole doing the donkey, literally, taking the difficult route to go to these first world countries where presumably you will live a life of milk and honey. Again, we've seen it in so many films over and over again. I don't see the what was such a draw for this theme to be sort of done in this kind of way, which has neither entertainment, no fun, no emotion, no feeling. It's not a Rajkumar Hirani film. I'm repeating myself, but I'm wondering what this film sort of I mean, did he even see his films? Because I remember having a chat with him a couple of times, and he's told me, I think he's told other interviews as well, that he locks himself in a room, and he's when he's writing, and he has to laugh and cry in his own movies. If he can't do that, then he doesn't see the point. And I really didn't see the point in this one either, because it didn't touch me in any way. It did not make me feel. So I really don't. It's such a pointless film, and it's such a big bore.
And there's no reason why it should have been like that, because the whole donkey route and the journey itself, from what we Indian Express did interviews with people who had taken the real donkey route in America and Europe, and they had some amazing stories to tell. If we were to turn what they said into cinema itself, that would have been such a compelling watch. But from what I can make out, that itself was also not very nicely told, right? The journey and as a road movie too, it doesn't work according to you, right?
Right. So it's almost like, it was an afterthought, that the whole idea of doing this journey, which should have been the center point of the film, and you're calling it donkey, and then you're spending so much time in a classroom where Baman Irani is completely wasted. He's such an intrinsic part of Rajkumar Irani's movies, that you can't actually imagine a film that he does without Irani in it. And I think he's completely wasted in this film, where he plays this teacher of English, who himself is not particularly proficient in the language. And there are these guys, including Shah Rukh Khan's character and Taapsee Pannu's character, and the other two people who are on the or they are doing the donkey with him. The other three people are basically, there are seven people when they start. three of them are summarily dispatched because we don't even know who they are, what they stood for, which is such an unlike a Hirani film, because even the smallest characters in his films, you feel for them. He makes you feel for them because he gives them some kind of a twist or some depth. Here, everything is on the surface. It's so shallow, and it's just very badly done. I don't know. Again, I'm in some kind of shock. I don't quite believe that this is a Rajkumar Hirani film. I think some gremlin came and took over and, and did this stuff. I have no idea what is going on. I could not believe it. I kept thinking something will happen.
But
Kuch
Vicky
hoga.
Kaushal was a high point, right? Everyone is talking about
Yeah,
Vicky
yeah.
Kaushal's performance. His
Yeah, Vicky Kaushal's character is a
doing
very
that,
Hirani
he
character.
can't do nothing
Yeah.
wrong, right? He's like on a bit of a hot streak.
Yeah, I mean, he really literally just comes and, the film just becomes something else. He has a 10 or 15-minute role. He just comes and goes. But when he's there, the film is pretty much a film that you can watch with some, and you want to know what happens to this character, and you want to know, and you are invested in him, in his story, in his arc. Even if you know that it's a tiny one, and you wish the film had much more of him, much more of that kind of zest of storytelling, which immediately reminds you of the Rajkumar Hirani of yore. So what? I mean, it's just speculative talking about what went wrong, because there are, in retrospect, there are many things that you can actually talk about. But literally, this film was the flattest written film I've seen in a long time. There is no lift to anything. It's just flat. It just stays on the screen. It doesn't lift up at all.
And I would bring the discussion to Shah Rukh Khan. You yourself wrote about what a great year it has been for Shah Rukh Khan. The link to the story will be shared in the description. It has been a great year for him. But and how where does and one thought that Dunki would be the grand celebration, right? Like it'll end with a grand celebration like Dunki, but clearly it is not that, like according to you at least or a lot of others too who are saying it's not.
No, I'm afraid not. In fact, I maybe no someone like me who literally goes into a film with zero expectation, because that's how I've trained myself. My practice tells me that one should go into a film expecting nothing. And I literally did not expect anything from the film other than the fact that it was hemmed by two people. I mean, basically a director who's always given me something to enjoy. I mean, his films, for whatever it is worth, whether there's been a biopic of Sanju, which kind of hid a few things from the real life Sanjay Dutt character, or even the times when there are some tasteless things that Rajkumar Hirani's films do. There has been a whole thing about the Balatkar thing in Three Idiots, which was like such a cringe moment. There's also, I think, also in Three Idiots, where that there's this woman and old couple who are in a very sort of poor kind of background, and she takes the
Sharman's
rolling pin
family,
and she kind of
yeah.
scratches the eczema ridden arm, and you're like, hey, I mean, how can you do that? And ugh. But it's a very smartly, very calculatedly done thing where he's making us cringe, because he goes back to he quickly puts that aside and gives us that whole lovable, kind of hero who is very relatable, who has his feet on the ground, which is why I thought in Dunki, where Shah Rukh is not playing this Superman, he's not just picking up a gun and shooting people. He is a Jawan. He's very much a soldier, but he's very much a man of the people. And that's the kind of role that Shah Rukh can ace without any effort at all. But here, it's neither the Shah Rukh where there's a swag to him, nor is it somebody who we like Raju Ban Gaya Gentle, not that kind of Raju either. It's just somewhere in between. He's trying very hard. It's not like he's not trying very hard. He's going at it, but literally with almost zero payoff. So it's inexplicable, this film. I don't know what happened to both of them.
A lot of people
Maybe
are
they need.
saying that his jokes, Hirani's and Abhijat Joshi's writing is dated. The jokes seem dated and jaded. Like it's not in keeping with the idiom of this generation, or and because things have changed so much in the last 5 years, maybe that could be a reason. Is that what would you agree to
You know,
that?
I think the whole film has a jaded feel to it. I mean, the jokes are just part of the writing. I think almost nothing lands, and every time they open their mouth to say something funny, it becomes like, oh, like let's get on to the next one, because you don't know what you're doing here. It's literally like lurching from one misfire to another, and you don't quite know what you want. What are you shooting for in this scene? Are you saying to me that this is a funny scene? Then you have to make it funny, right? There is literally, it's just such a slog, this film. It's such a hard one to watch, and it's such a heartbreaking film, actually. The Because of the fact that these are two people who, when they are at the top of their game, they really make, they make the thing sing. So when you come up with something like this, you wonder, and you start thinking dire thoughts about life and about what you're doing in
I
this
would
dark theater.
I would want you to step back and as someone who has worked as in has observed Shah Rukh Khan for such a long time, most of his career. I would want you to step back and wonder, like, and tell us, like, and wonder aloud, what does Shah Rukh Khan do now? In the sense, when he's playing those larger than life character, it works. But like every time, I mean, the knee jerk reaction might be that every time he's trying to do something new, things or something less macho, it might not work, because like in Zero and and this one, like, do you think that might be a knee jerk reaction, him just retracting from these experimental stuff? Do you think that could be playing in his
Okay.
mind?
Um, no, I don't. This is hardly experimental. There's nothing experimental about Dunky at all. He's playing a guy who is good at heart. There is nothing, even on the surface, there's nothing gray about him. He's very much a Shah Rukh Khan kind, a version of Shah Rukh that we've seen before. It's just that there is something to be said about being written in a way that you want to know more about this character, that you feel for the character, that you want them to succeed, you want him to be happy. And all of this was missing from Dunky. And I think it's not just, I mean, the thing about him, Shah Rukh has actually gone on record a couple of times and says that he wanted to do action before he moved into romance unwittingly because of Dilwale. And then he did a whole series of films which had him as the lover boy. I think he does many kinds of things really well, but Shah Rukh needs to be totally convinced about it. And here he is literally, he's so close to Hemming. I mean, he's so close to his much vaunted statement, which he used to fling about many years ago. I haven't heard him do that. He says, "Oh, I'm this guy who has only 5 expressions." Okay, he said it over and over again, but I'm also an entertainer. So here he's neither entertaining, he's only got those 5 expressions, he's only just doing this very limited register where nothing in the way his character is being written actually resonates with any of us. At least it didn't resonate with me at all.
Going back to Salaar, like this is Prabhas's big film after the debacle, two or three back-to-back debacles, right? And this seems to be finally where things seems to be working out for him. So do you think this is again one of those big pan-Indian film that and will bring back like the magic of pan-Indian film
Okay.
after RRR?
Um, it's still too early to say this because my early morning show did have quite a few people in it. It was a 7 a.m. show, and there were some 30%, I think 60% of the tiny theater was kind of full. But you would expect this in a Prabhas Prithviraj movie, except the if I go by what the audience's reaction was, it was not as, uh, it was not as, what is the word I'm looking for? It was kind of muted. I mean, the kind of when the hero's entry happens, you know that there are all these people who are just waiting to cheer. That wasn't like as I've heard it. I've heard it. I've seen both parts of Bahubali. I've seen the KGF film. There is a certain kind of bzzz in the theater that you can feel. In my first show, first day, first show, it wasn't very apparent. I have no idea how it will play out. But also remember that it's a theater in Delhi. It's not south of the Vindhyas where I'm told there has been much more excitement in even the 3:45 a.m. show. I read somewhere was completely full. So I think it's still a little early. I think the film has a mass appeal. I think it will get all the fans of both Prashant as well as the Yash, as well as this kind of big world building, violent, very, very violent, very macho, very extremely a kind of a cinema where everything, the women characters are all subservient to the male characters. All of this in a universe which seems to appeal to so many people today will maybe bring back the Prabhas's fans, but I don't know whether it will be as much of a celebration of Prabhas as it has been, say, in Bahubali. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling because it's very much in the same vein as KGF. It's not very different. Prabhas does play he does play a hero, and they leave us on a hook for part two, where he is not what he is seemingly been in this entire three and a half hours. So there is a little bit of intrigue as to how that will play out, but that's about it. Um, Otherwise, we'll just have to see. The next few days will tell, actually.
And just before we end, word about the world that you're talking about, right? Violence, subservient women, the hyper masculine male star. That seems to be the flavor of the year, or maybe like the next few years. Who knows? So, do you think that is where that's what's going to work now? Or what do you feel?
I think the movie-going audience in India as well as in globally has for the last many years and even now is moving towards this 15 to 25-year-old men, young men, right, who will go into theaters to buy a ticket for that event tentpole movie which will open big. I think the other kind of film will probably be seen on OTT. People will wait for it to come 4 weeks later. So I think filmmakers are already kind of aware that if this is the moving audience which will come to the movies and this is what they want to watch, let's give them more of it. So I'm thinking that many of the films that we will see in theaters which are expected to open big or which have a blockbustery air about them or have a buzz about them will be this kind of hyper masculine, let's kill everybody, let's bloody our machetes and go after the people. And as much blood there will be that much of stickiness with the content that you're watching. It's basically now coming to this content where everything is being constructed to attract this kind of audience. I fear that this is going to be the flavor of the season, as you said. It has always been, actually, but now more so, because I think the pandemic really has done a before and after for us. I think now if we go to the movies, we want sensation. We don't want to just watch a movie. We want to be highly sensitized to what we are watching. We want to have a visceral reaction to what is on screen. And if it works for us, great. If it doesn't, then we'll say, okay, we'll go back to our streaming devices. But I think this may be the thing that most the movie going audiences may be veering towards, at least for the time being.
So yeah, that's just about it, I'm guessing, and we are almost out of time. Dunki versus Salaar might have the audiences divided, but Shubra is veering a little towards, if I were to put a gun on her head, as she said, she will veer a little towards Salaar, because Dunki, as this headline of a review says, is a crashing bore. So anyway, it might be a crashing bore, but we would urge you to watch both the films, and please, like, comment below what you think of both the films. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Shubra.